So I think today I only have like one general question
Okay.
because I'm like thinking of like what do I want to ask,
Hmm.
and this is basically like my question. So from all the like sources of Jesus, for example, we have the letters of Paul, we have like the Gospel of John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, right?
Hmm.
Why should we trust all those sources when there's a much earlier source, which is the Gospel of Q, and the Gospel of Hugh doesn't have the narrative of, for example, the crucifixion. It's like more in alignment with the like practices and like teachings of Jesus in Islam.
Hmm. Yeah, so there isn't a document called Q. So Q is what's called a hypothetical document. So what they do is pretty much they take what's similar in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke, and then they put that together and they form some type of hypothetical document, and they say maybe there's some document like this out there where they're both using to bring their gospels to life. So Q is not an actual document, an actual thing. There's no manuscripts of Q or anything like that.
Okay, first of all, two things. First of all the people in the comments saying, "Did he say the Gospel of Q?" I mean, this is like scholars talk about this all the time. I don't know, like you're
Yeah, it's
pretending
just
like I cited the Gospel of Barnabas,
no,
like it's not.
no, yeah, but it's a hypothetical document. It's not. There's no like actual document. Nothing that even dates nowhere close. Like this is something that somebody a theory that somebody came up with rather recently. But you don't have
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, so I have two problems with like the idea only because this is a theory. Like we can't use this as an argument. Like first of all, um, obviously in a simplified form, Luke and Matthew copy Mark in most like they have contain like 93% of Mark, and like the rest of what they have is either like their own comments, right, or they copy something else. Correct? Like that's hypothetically, and that thing which that other thing which they copy is what they call the Gospel of Q. And so basically, you say it's hypothetical, like there's no manuscript evidence, but we didn't have any manuscript evidence till like of like the Gospel of Thomas, for example, till the what's it called, the Naqtmadagi collection. Like we didn't have
Mhm.
any manuscripts of the Gospel of Thomas till like the 19th century. So using that argument, someone could also say, well, we don't have any manuscripts of the Gospel of Thomas, so it can't have existed. Like someone could have made that argument, but like the Gospel of Q,
Which Gospel of
most
Thomas are you talking about? The infancy Gospel of Thomas?
no, not the infancy one. Well, hold on, let me check. I'm not saying that the Gospel of Thomas is reliable. I'm just using it as an example, right?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering which gospel, like which one you're talking about.
Followed by the thing that when you say, okay, we don't have any manuscripts of it, that's not only an argument from silence, but yeah. Yeah, here. The Gospel of Thomas, as part of the Nag Hammadi library, was discovered in 1945. So if we say, okay, the Gospel of Hugh is hypothetical, sure, it's like a hypothesis, just like the Big Bang or like many things are hypotheticals, but just because they're hypotheticals doesn't mean we're not certain of them. Like most scholars are just certain there's this source called the Gospel of Q.
Yeah, no. So we have the Nag Hammadi discovery of the Gospel of Thomas. That's like the one complete copy of the Gospel of Thomas that we have, right? Which dates to about the second century, but we have fragments that date before that. So there's still manuscript evidence that goes to point to, oh, the Gospel of Thomas is something that existed from the second century on. That's that's not the problem. In regards to the Q source, there's there's absolutely not only is there no textual evidence, but it's literally just a theory that someone came up with. There's no reason for us to believe that there is this actual document. They say that, oh, they're Luke and Matthew are similar, or they believe that they're copying Mark, for example, right? But it completely
Mhm.
throws out the point that they're telling the same story. It would be like me being in an interrogation room and my fiance and my brother, and we're telling the same story, and then people come thousands of years later and say, oh, they must have copied each other because look at their similarities. But they're telling the same story. Like they're Matthew's an eyewitness. Mark is Mark is the gospel of Peter, who's an eyewitness. Luke literally says that he's getting his story from the eyewitnesses. Why wouldn't the stories be similar? It doesn't make any sense. Um, so there's just no reason for us to
So the
believe.
reason
But
why,
even so, because I know that you're Muslim. So say for instance, if we could take some of the hypothetical Q documents that they have, you would still disagree with what the Q document says as a Muslim.
so okay, so I know that there are some verses, right, which can be controversial. Obviously, I haven't like read the gospel. I've like read the Gospel of Q basically because I read Matthew and Luke, but like I haven't read it in one piece.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
When, for example, scholars date Mark earlier than Matthew and Luke, right? Because first of all, Mark, do you believe Mark is an eyewitness?
No, Mark is the interpreter of Peter. So Peter is the eyewitness. Mark is the
Right,
one who's giving us Peter's testimony, pretty much.
exactly. So if you're making the argument, okay, like the synoptics or even like the Gospel of John is like eyewitness except Luke, obviously. Why in the world would Matthew, an eyewitness, copy from Mark, who isn't an eyewitness, who copies from Peter? Like, and
Who
added to
copies
that
from?
fact, why would Matthew? No, look, Luke. Let's hypothetically say that, like, according to many scholars, Luke is a bit earlier than Matthew, right? But let's think about this. Jesus is this figure, right? Who's
Mhm.
like an important figure, and the like through time, people want to learn more about him. It wouldn't make sense for someone to like take Matthew, take like the first 14 chapters or whatever, and just copy that and make a smaller gospel. Obviously, with time, you want more information. So it's logical that the Gospel of Mark came first. And then when you look at
That's
Matthew and
not
Luke are
true.
like
That's
10,
not.
20 years old.
So you see how you're just jumping. So the way in which a lot of these scholars like jump to certain conclusions, I think if you look into them, you will see that they're not really based on solid ground. Like for example, the dating of the Gospels, right? A lot of the dating of the Gospels is like based off the presupposition that prophecy is impossible. So they say because Jesus predicts destruction of the second temple, and obviously he gets that right in the Gospels, it has to be written after the destruction of the second temple because prophecy is impossible. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I
know
don't.
that dating method is like very stupid.
Yeah, but that's what
Like,
a lot of
I agree.
scholars. That's what a lot of scholars agree with because obviously you can't definitively prove that prophecy is possible. So you would say, oh, if he got something in such great detail early on, either you say that prophecy is possible, which you're not going to do as a scholar, or you go with the later dating, which is what they do. They go with the later dating. So in regards to Matthew and this development of doctrine, which a lot of people like to purport on the gospel, so they say, oh, since Mark is shorter, therefore we'll say that Mark is earlier. Why would I need to accept that? Now I don't have a problem with saying that Mark is the first gospel, but why would I need to
Mhm.
believe that, especially if I have like early church tradition and people who are directly connected to these people saying that like Matthew was the first one that was written.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense. Like, okay, let's take the paradigm that Matthew wrote his gospel first, then Mark, then Luke, right? Let's just say,
Okay.
first of all, why would there be this long gospel? Matthew, it's the longest gospel out of the four. Then why would Luke shorten it, like make his own comments about it, and basically copy from not only like Mark himself and the thing is, the
Yeah,
reason why
so
also people think
so
that
here,
Mark came
hold on,
first is
hold on.
because Luke.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
with Matthew. I think it's important to know who these people are, because when you have an idea as to who the authors are, then you and their audience, then you understand why they write the way in which they write. So Matthew is a tax collector and a Jew. So Matthew is going
Yeah.
in very extensive detail as to how this person, namely Jesus, is the Messiah that fulfills the scriptures. Matthew and Luke are actually written very differently. Luke is a doctor who is a Gentile, who is giving a detailed account that he compiles together, which, I mean, I'm reading through Luke right now from beginning to end, right? Luke differs a lot
Hmm.
from Matthew, especially in the content. Luke is giving a very special emphasis on the Gentiles and how Christ is not just the savior for the Jews, but is also the savior for the Gentiles.
Okay.
Mark, the interpreter of Peter, his thing is showing the power of Christ and how he has power over demonic forces. So when you read the first couple chapters of Mark, you see Mark laying down this groundwork of how Jesus is doing all these things to the demonic forces. Right? So when you understand their goal and their gospel, then you understand as to why one is longer, one is shorter, one goes into more detail than the other on very specific things. Matthew is going to go into a lot of Old Testament scripture where Luke isn't going to do all of that. He'll reference a couple of prophecies, right? But he's not going into the immense detail into the Old Testament that Matthew, the Jew, is who's writing to Jews.
Yeah. So okay. Do you believe Matthew copied from Mark?
I don't think I have to believe that. It doesn't matter, but
Okay.
I don't think I have to believe that.
Look, obviously for you it doesn't matter. Like, if you would ask me a question, I could also say like, why would it matter? Like, I could just live my own life, have my own faith. But that's like not the
No,
point. The
no,
point of
I'm
the question
saying
is
I'm saying
not if you
even
have to. Like, if you do.
I haven't seen a real reason as to why I would need to hold to that. I just haven't seen a convincing enough reason as to like, yeah, Matthew definitely copies from Mark. Like I haven't seen that.
But look, here's the thing. You make your like position on this very ambiguous, and then when I make like the argument, okay, Mark came first, and Matthew basically and Luke copy from Mark, then you like make this argument. Well, I don't have to take that position.
I'm no,
Well,
I'm
then you
saying
need to
okay,
clarify your position
yeah,
to like
my
make.
position, I'm saying that church tradition says that Matthew wrote his gospel first. So why? I'm asking you, why would I need to accept? What's the evidence that I need to accept that Mark is written first if church tradition says that Matthew was written first? Now, I don't have a problem with stating that Mark is written first. I don't. Like if the evidence points to that, it doesn't change anything about the position. I'm saying that I haven't seen the evidence that forces me to accept that Mark is written first and Matthew and Luke copy Mark. What's that evidence?
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for Mark to basically copy Luke, right? Because the like Luke is more accurate to
Why
Mark
why
in
do
like
they
the
need to
Q
I don't
gospel.
why do I need to why do they need to copy one another?
Well, because they write the same things. Basically, like if you look into the statistics, the Greek of Mark is like found 93% in Luke. So it's basically
They're
like
speaking the same
plagiarism.
they're speaking the same language. I think a lot of it is very speculative and it's not actually it doesn't seem like strong evidence to me. They're
Okay,
literally
but you and
speaking.
I, for example,
Mark is somebody that's fluent in the language of Greek. So is Luke. Luke is a doctor. He's a Greek doctor. Mark's whole
I
purpose,
know.
Mark's whole purpose was translating Peter for specific crowds, right? So I don't
Okay,
understand why it would be a problem that oh their language looks similar if they're speaking the same language.
no, 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 no. Not the language. I'm not talking about the language. Okay, for example, you and I speak English. My English is probably way worse, but you're fluent in English at least. If someone like assigned to us a task, okay, make an autobiography of Captain Crunch, okay? If we like wrote about him, it would not like no one would think in their right mind that if we copy the same story, and not only the same story, but literally the same words, like 93% of the same words, just sometimes in different orderings and sometimes like variations, no one would think, well, they're talking about the same person, therefore it's not like copying. Well, no, if it's genuinely like the same in some sense, then obviously we're
Yeah,
copying.
but they're
Like
not just telling. They're not just
either I'm
telling a.
copying you.
No, but they're not just telling a vague story. They're quoting the speeches that are given by Christ, right? So I mean, you've yet to provide the evidence that makes me accept. But what's the point? Like, get to the crux of your argument. So you came up
Yeah,
here
my
because
my
I
argument.
only have I only have a couple more minutes. So you came up here, you
Oh
said
my bad.
why should we accept the letters of Paul or the Gospels if we have the Q source? And the Q source doesn't actually exist. So what's the actual argument?
Uh, okay, you know what? I I don't think currently I have any evidence. So if you want to leave it at that, we can.
I mean, we can because there's just no
I mean,
reason.
like, there's no point of me making points and talking if I don't have enough knowledge. That's just me being a fool. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean I appreciate that, but I'm saying that in regards to the best evidence that we have in regards to the historical Jesus isn't going to come from this hypothetical Q source, but it's going to come from the actual documents, namely Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the epistles of Paul, and then the writings of the historians that come after Tacitus, Josephus, even the people who probably met Jesus as well, who are in church tradition. Um, so
well, Josephus is probably like little chance that it's authentic, but like that's another discussion, man.
no,
I don't see any reason to get into.
there's new evidence that comes out that pretty much clarifies as to what Josephus is writing. I could pull that up for you if you want, but Josephus very clearly says that Jesus was crucified.
The thing is, the reason why scholars don't take this as an actual like writing is, first of all, the first manuscript we have of this is like what dated like over the 10th century. Second of all, Origen, the church father, and the church father Jerome talk about Josephus, and Origen himself, when trying to prove Jesus existed, appeals to Josephus. But then, instead of appealing to the saying of Josephus, he appeals to another saying where it just says Jesus, the brother of James. If this was already in Josephus's writings, why would Origen and Jerome, early church fathers, not quote it when trying to prove Jesus existed?
Yeah,
It makes like absolutely no sense.
they're not just proving that Jesus existed though. If you look at the people who they're refuting that Jesus had an actual body. So they're going to show that, oh, if Jesus obviously had a brother, then obviously Jesus had a physical body. He was actually here, right? He wasn't just a figment of people's imagination, or a spirit, which is the people that they weren't saying that Jesus never existed, but Jesus didn't come in bodily form was what they were arguing. So uh,
Yeah, I agree with the
what
second.
Josephus, yeah, so what Josephus is saying, um, in the quote that a lot of people like to bring up, isn't going to really do much for their argument, because what I believe what Josephus says is like, Jesus, if you were to call him a man, right? Why would I bring that up when I'm trying to prove that this dude actually isn't a spirit? I'm not going to
Well,
bring
no,
that
the
up for
thing
my
is that
purposes.
even that statement doesn't make any sense in like its historical context. Why would Josephus, who's a devout Jew, make the statement about a Messiah who is like considered in the first century as like this cult group? Why would this devout Jew suddenly out of nowhere say, okay, this man was maybe not even a man, like probably an angel or a god or whatever? Like it doesn't make any sense then
What?
that Origin and Josephus, like that Origin and
No,
Jerome
so
is not
yeah,
quoting that
so
passage also.
there's new evidence that's put forth by historian. He's really into to Josephus and all his writings. His name is Thomas Schmidt. You could
Hold
go
on,
to
let me write his name down.
Yeah,
Thomas
Schmidt.
Thomas Smith.
Sh- Schmidt.
SCHMITD.
DT.
Okay.
Yeah, and he has a book.
DT.
He has a book
Oh, I
called
think the guy's German.
yeah. He has a book called Josephus and Jesus, where he goes through all of
Mm.
Josephus's writings and he reconstructs the passage that is talked about in regards to Jesus, and he re-renders it in what is the most probable reading and correct reading of what Josephus says. Um,
Mm.
and he explains as to like why Origin and them wouldn't like use this quote, but obviously like the quote existed. So what
At
he
least some
says is
variation of it, probably.
yeah, so that's his whole thing is he re-renders it using the Greek that or the language that Josephus uses because like there's small different interpretations in regards to the translations as to what people believe that Josephus was trying to say. So he actually uses all of Josephus's writings, puts it in context, and then renders it correctly. Um, so it says that like, and he bought over many among the Jews. Oh, and at this time there was a certain Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was a doer of incredible deeds, a teacher of men who received truisms with pleasure, and he bought over many from among the Jews, many from among the Greeks. He was thought to be the Christ. And when Pilate had condemned him to the cross at the accusation of the first men among those who were first devoted, who at first were devoted to him, did not cease to be so. For on the third day it seemed to them that he was alive again, given the divine prophets had spoken of such things, thousands of wonderful things. And now, up until now, they are called the Christians, who were named from him and has not disappeared. And Josephus' whole goal in that, well, he goes into that. If you want to read the book, you could read the book. Um, but yeah, so that's the like correct
How big is
rendering
it?
into it.
Like, how big is the book?
How big is the book? Like how many pages?
Yeah, because if it has like 500 pages, I'm not gonna read that. But like, if it's 50 or like 70 pages, sure.
Uh, Here, let me see. Um,
By the way, before I go, can I make like ask a small question? It's not like a huge question.
yeah, you could ask a question.
Okay. So, look, this is going to sound like very like a low tier question or like argument,
Mm-hmm.
but you know how like in John, the book of John, chapter 14, verse 6, like a lot of Muslims make the argument, well, that's Muhammad,
Oh,
right?
this is a book. It's three hundred and
Hold
thirty
on.
seven pages, but you don't have to read everything. You just go
Damn.
to yeah, you'll just go to like what's important. Um,
Damn.
but like he goes into a lot of stuff. So this was the original like his original book. I don't want to say original, but like he was intending to just write part one, which is like the first 100 pages, which is just going into the Greek, right? Um, that was the original goal. And then it was like he wanted to answer the question, how would Josephus know these things about Christ? And then that turns into like a whole nother 100 pages, pretty much 200 pages damn near. So that's
How
why
the heck do you write like how the heck do you write books on like based on two sentences?
no, so
That's crazy.
the first part, the authenticity of the Testimonium Flavianum, this is page 13 to 108. So that's not that long. It's less than 100 pages, right? So that's what you would probably be more interested in. Now, in understanding how Josephus knows these things about Christ and the Christian movement and everything like that, he goes into all the people around Josephus who he had direct access to and how he knows these things. Josephus had direct access to people who actually witnessed Christ, helped condemn Christ to death, all of those things. Like he has direct, like his right hand man was one of the people. Um, so this is why, like in his quote, when he's talking about like of first witnesses and stuff like that, He's getting this information from people who have direct information, who are against Christ. Yeah, but they are witnesses of Christ. They saw him. This is how he knows these things. So that's what he ends up writing in part two. You, since you're wondering about the testimony of Flavianum, will be focused on part one.
Yeah. So,
And you could get this for free.
I
You could get this PDF for free.
really
Yeah. So if
cool.
you come to his website, Josephus and Jesus, you could go to purchase and free download, and then you could just click here for the free download.
Oh, I'm glad because some guy in the comments said it's $130.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's why they offer it for free as well. So
Damn, that's a W. But the last question before I go, because like you don't have a lot of time today, right? So again, this might sound like a low tier argument, but hear me out. Okay,
mhm.
hear me out. So obviously, you as a Christian would make the argument that the book of John, chapter 14, verse 6, is not about Muhammad, right? And I've
John
seen many.
14:6. Yeah.
Yeah, and
hmm
I know the explanation Christians give. It's basically like, okay, look at the context, and I agree. Like the context is clear that it's the Holy Spirit. Like I wouldn't argue that, right?
Okay.
But I would make the argument that context, when it comes to prophecy, is not important, especially not in the New Testament. And I'll give you an example. For example, in the book of Hosea, chapter 11, verse 1, it says, "Out of Egypt I called my son."
hmm
And the book of Matthew, chapter 2, verse 15, quotes it and says that this prophecy has been fulfilled after Jesus returned from Egypt, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the context, like not even the context, like literally the next verse, which is the book of Hosea, chapter 11, verse 2, it
hmm
says, "But they kept worshiping the devil and kept giving sacrifices."
Yeah.
So obviously, the author of Matthew is aware of this, right? And I don't blame him. I'm not saying what he did is wrong,
Yeah.
but my problem is when even the author of Matthew didn't have a problem with context in his like prophecies being fulfilled. Why do Christians, when it comes to like John 14:6, do they appeal to context, even though that's
Well,
obviously not?
it's more than that. So in regards to the ways in which this is another example, but in regards to the ways in which Jews understood prophecy, especially in the first century, there's a predictive prophecy as to this thing is only going to take place in the future, and then there's typological prophecies. So Matthew is showing how Christ fulfills this typology or this typological prophecy of the same way that God saved his people out of Egypt is the same way in which he's doing in regards to the Messiah. Like he's saving us. So it's not saying that, oh, this is only going to happen in the future and this can only be applied to the Messiah. In the context of Hosea chapter 11, it is talking about Israel, but in the same way that God acted in the past, look at how he's acting again through his Messiah. And that's the way in which Jews understood or would articulate different types of prophecies, either predictive prophecies or typological prophecies. Now, in regards to the book of John, chapter 14, it's not just Christians that are afraid of or focused on context, but also the Muslims. Because if you're going to say that this is about Muhammad, you have to affirm the things that are said about this helper that is to come, which Muslims are not able to affirm. So,
Look, well, I don't understand. When it comes to Matthew making this prophecy, it's typology and not every attribute or like aspect of this of this person Israel doesn't need to apply.
no,
But
I'm
when it
saying
says,
that
for
it's
example,
in
he will
line.
be in you.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm?
saying that it's in line with the ways in which Jews understood prophecy. So what Matthew is saying is not this, oh, this thing is only going to happen in the future, but he's going to show that the way that God acted and saved the people back then is in like manner he is doing it now through the Messiah. That's what Matthew is going to show. So that isn't a predictive prophecy. Hosea 11 is not a predictive prophecy.
Yeah,
Matthew is literally only showing that, oh, God acted this way in the Old Testament. It's not something new that God is doing, but the same way he saved us, Jesus Christ.
hold on. Delete that comment. Delete that comment. What
Yeah,
the
yeah,
heck?
yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah. Um, thank you, Cam.
Yeah, that just threw us
Thank you,
both off.
Sophia. Sophia, 5 minutes is crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. You think it's gonna get better? You think he go? You think he go get his act together and come back 5 minutes ready to go?
Got his app. And then he'll be good.
um, nah, but um, yeah. So in regards to John chapter 14, this is a predictive prophecy. Um, and
In the
then
sense that it gives attributes to this future like prophetic figure.
yeah,
Okay.
and there's specific attributes about this future prophetic figure um, that Muslims would have to accept in order to say that it is Muhammad as well, which just wouldn't make any sense, right? For like my fault, Matthew 14, 16, right? I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper to be with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. Can you say that about
Yeah.
Muhammad?
Obviously not, but again, I don't see a reason why you say it's typology when it comes to Matthew, and why could I not say like this is typology when it comes to this? Because you're saying, look, the thing
What's the
is,
type?
yeah, 11. Hmm?
What's the type? And you're saying that this is literally Muhammad, right?
No, I'm saying this could be a future,
And
like
then
this could be
on top
a
and then on
future.
top of that, he literally clarifies as to who he's talking about, right? When he says it in verse 26.
Okay, you know what's the issue with this? What you just like your response, Hosea 11. Like if you look from a Jewish comment, like perspective, let's say before even Jesus existed, like you won't see a prophecy. It's not a prophecy. It just says, "Out of Egypt I called my son." Like I don't see any potentiality in prophecy itself there, right? But Matthew makes it a prophecy, and obviously this prophet, like
Here, what did
this.
I say that prophecy means in regards to Matthew? Like what's the different ways in which prophecy is understood in the ancient Jewish context?
Yeah, you said that there's this like how can I explain it? You said there's a standard of prophecy, like in in the ancient Jewish culture, and that not every aspect like would need to apply, but only
No, no,
like
no, no.
the.
So I was saying that there's a difference between predictive prophecies and typological prophecies, right? So
Oh,
yeah, so in
okay.
you have predictive prophecies of the Messiah. The Messiah is going to come. He's going to be born of a virgin, right? That's not a typological prophecy. This is something that God is going to do, so we can look for this sign. God is giving us a sign, right? Oh, the Messiah is going to be born of a virgin. The Messiah is going to be pierced in his hands and his feet. He's going to be sold for 30 pieces of silver, right? These are things that are said of the Messiah, which are predictive prophecies that do come to pass. We see that in the Jewish Old Testament, right? And then we also see the ways in which prophecies are prescribed is, the things that God did in the past and he's doing it now. They also call those prophecies. Now, this isn't like something that was predicted by a prophet that's going to happen in the future, but it's just a revelation to show that God is still acting within creation. And we can see that it's God acting within creation because of the ways in which he acted in the past. For example, Moses splits the Red Sea. Now, he confirms this and fulfills this prophecy of a prophet coming after him when Joshua splits the sea. And then Elijah splits the sea. And Elisha splits the sea. Because this is a sign that God's prophet has been chosen among the people. So you can say that prophecy has been fulfilled, but there's no prophecy that or a lot of the prophets that come after Moses are also going to split the sea. No, this is
Okay,
just a
okay,
sign.
I understand it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, that makes sense. Like prophet, like you're basically trying to say, for example, the book of Revelation, it makes a prophecy, like a clear prophecy of what will happen, right? But for example, like Hosea, since if you look at it like immediately, you won't see a prophecy. It's like typology, like
Yeah.
it's copying. I get it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All
Yeah, I
right.
gotta go now. It was nice talking to you, bro.
It's always good talking to you, man. God bless you.
God, oh, hold on, hold on. A guy in the comments called Raven. He said he's a Buddhist. Like, why don't you use the cosmological argument on him? That would be fire.
Hey, we'll see. I got 4 people in the guest request, and I got like 20 minutes, bro. So we'll see. I just enjoyed talking to you. So
What do you
God bless you,
mean
man.
20 minutes? What are you
God
talking
bless
about?
you too, man.
Uh,
You all have a great day.
you too, man.